Hello and welcome to my channel. When we think of ancient Greece, many images come to mind. Marble temples, epic battles between good and evil, and men wearing togas and sandals while discussing philosophy in the streets. But what if I told you that the reason we think this way is because of one man? His name was Pericles, and he shaped not only the political system but also the culture of Athens. From 461 to 429 BC, his impact on Athenian society is similar to that of Augustus in Rome, or the Prophet Muhammad in the Middle East. He literally wrote the constitution for the world's first democracy. And then he made Athens the cultural center of Greece, with the construction of the Parthenon and the Acropolis. Without Pericles, we would not have Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, or the Olympics. So let's learn about the life and accomplishments of this great leader. Before we start, I need to say that there are very few reliable sources about Pericles' life. Most of what we know comes from the writings of his rival, Xenophon. So we can never be sure if Pericles was a virtuous leader or an evil dictator. I will try to remain neutral. But please keep in mind that this video is more like a biography than a historical analysis. Anyway, let's begin. Born in 500 BC in Athens, Pericles came from a wealthy aristocratic family called the Since Athens was an oligarchy at the time, only the rich could participate in politics. Thus, Pericles had all the time and resources needed to become the greatest leader of all time. When he grew up, Pericles traveled around the Mediterranean to learn about different political systems. According to Plutarch, he visited Egypt and the Oracle of Delphi, but most historians reject these claims as propaganda. Instead, they believe that Pericles traveled throughout the Aegean Sea, visiting commercial colonies of the In any case, Pericles learned the art of persuasion and public speaking during his travels, which he later used to manipulate people into doing what he wanted. Pericles returned to Athens as a young man and married a rich woman named Agora. This union gave him access to even more power and influence, and he wasted no time putting it to use. Pericles entered politics and quickly became one of the most popular leaders in Athens. The Athenian constitution established that only men born in Athens could be citizens and vote. Slaves, foreigners, and women were excluded from the political process. Even so, citizenship was expanded to include most free adult males who lived in the city. It was during this period that Athens experienced unprecedented economic and cultural growth. Trade flourished, and the city became the cultural capital of Greece. As we have seen, Pericles inherited an oligarchy when he began his political career. Power was concentrated in the hands of a few aristocrats who controlled the government. However, by the end of his career, Athens had become a full democracy. How did this happen? Well, the transformation of Athens into a democracy was a gradual process that began long before Pericles came to power. The first step was taken in 508 BC, when Cleisthenes introduced a new system of representation in the assembly. This reform allowed more citizens to participate in politics, but the rich still had more power than the poor. Pericles took advantage of this situation and formed a political alliance with the middle class, which was gaining more power every day. Together, they carried out a series of reforms that established democracy as the official government of Athens. First, Pericles proposed a law that limited the amount of property a citizen needed to own in order to qualify for public office. This allowed talented men from the middle class to enter politics regardless of their wealth. Second, Pericles reorganized the courts and replaced the Council of 400 with the Council of 500. This reform ensured that no group of citizens could control the government and that decisions would be made by the people. Third, Pericles reformed the army and created a navy. This was necessary to protect Athens from its enemies, especially Sparta. Finally, Pericles introduced a new currency, the Athenian owl. which was used throughout the Mediterranean. This reform facilitated trade and helped to make Athens the cultural center of the Greek world. These reforms were very successful, and Athens became the most powerful city in Greece. However, not everyone benefited from them. While democracy spread throughout the city, slavery also increased. As Athens grew richer, it needed more slaves to work in the fields and workshops. Slaves were imported from all over the Mediterranean, including from conquered territories. Pericles did nothing to stop this trend, and even participated in the conquest of Melos, where he ordered the killing of all the adult males and the enslavement of women and children. Even though Pericles was responsible for some of Athens' greatest achievements, he also made some serious mistakes. One of his biggest blunders was his decision to go to war with Sparta. The result was the Peloponnesian War, which lasted for 27 years and devastated both sides. Pericles knew that Sparta was a powerful military force, but he underestimated their strength. He thought that Athens could win the war easily, because it had the strongest navy in the Aegean Sea. Unfortunately, the war turned out to have Athens' worst nightmares. Sparta was aided by its allies, especially Corinth and Thebes, and Athens suffered terrible defeats. Pericles tried to make peace with Sparta several times, but the Spartans refused to negotiate until Athens was completely defeated. This stalemate lasted for 10 years. During that time, Athens lost much of its territory and population due to famine and disease. The turning point of the war came in for 29 BC. When a plague struck Athens, the disease killed thousands of people, including the general who replaced Pericles was Cleon, a demagogue who continued the war against Sparta. Unlike Pericles, Cleon was a poor man who appealed to the emotions of the citizens rather than their reason. His policies were disastrous, and Athens lost even more territory and prestige. Pericles had hoped to create a just and prosperous state based on reason and moderation, but his successors turned Athens into a reckless and aggressive empire. Now let's talk about Pericles' personal life. He was married twice. His first wife was Agarista, whom he married when he was young. With her, he had 2 sons. After Agarista died, he married another woman named Aspasia, who was a foreigner. It is said that she was very beautiful and intelligent, and that she helped Pericles with his speeches and writings. Some historians claim that Pericles and Aspasia were lovers, but there is no evidence to support this claim. What we do know is that they had a son together named Pericles. The younger. You may wonder why Pericles wasn't married to Aspasia, since same-sex marriage was legal in ancient Athens. The answer is that Athenian law only recognized marriages between men and women. Same-sex marriage was called ephebism, and it was considered a temporary union between a young man and his older lover. Ephebism was common among the Greeks, and it was usually based on mutual attraction and affection. There were no legal or social obligations involved in this type of relationship, and it was not exclusive. A young man could have several lovers at the same time. However, ephebism was not accepted by everyone in Athenian society. Some people, such as the poet Sappho, criticized this practice because they believed that it was unnatural and immoral. Other people, such as the philosopher Plato, saw ephebism as a positive and beneficial institution, because they believed that it helped young men to develop their sexuality and maturity. Pericles was not only a politician, he was also a patron of the arts and sciences. He understood that culture was a powerful tool for influencing people, and he used it to promote Athenian values and interests. For example, he built the famous Parthenon on the Acropolis of Athens, which was a temple dedicated to the goddess Athena. The Parthenon was considered one of the ancient world's 7 wonders, and it housed many masterpieces of sculpture, including the famous Elgin marbles. Pericles also promoted the arts by founding festivals such as the City Dionysia, which was a celebration of theatre and music. These festivals attracted artists and spectators from all over Greece, and they helped to spread Athenian culture and identity. Furthermore, Pericles supported philosophers such as Anaxagoras and who taught new ways of thinking based on reason and logic rather than mythology and tradition. He believed that philosophy could help Athens to become a center of knowledge and wisdom. In conclusion, Pericles was one of the most influential leaders of ancient Athens, shaping its political system and cultural landscape. His legacy lives on through his contributions to democracy, architecture, art, and philosophy. We can learn from his example by embracing reason, promoting justice, and supporting the arts. Let me know what you thought about Pericles in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks for watching and see you next time.